Welcome back everyone to another episode of Roofing Rundown Show. Today we're talking about painful topic of overhead and profit and why contractors are due overhead and profit. And I have very special guests, Pate and John here from PremierClaims. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for
Thank you for joining us. It'll be very, very fun and informative conversation. So guys, what's overhead and profit? Explain me in 2 words, like what's overhead and profit, why contractors are charging it and insurance are paying it.
Okay.
So overhead and profit is a percentage-based line item that is dictated upon, in theory, complexity of a job that is then paid to a contractor so that that contractor, A, can cover his overhead and various expenses incurred and profit so they make money on the job, which is why people work.
So if I'm a contractor and I have a crews and I bid on the jobs, do I by default already include overhead and profit in my pricing, or is something you charge on top of that?
It's a line item, so it should be included at that point. So at the point in time that you, let's say, incur both overhead and or profit, which should be every single time unless, let's say, you're working on your own house and things were given to you and you shouldn't make a profit on that particular deal. I mean, in my theory, that you should get it every single time. However, that's not really in practice, right? So the question then becomes, when does overhead and profit occur and how much should it be?
All right. One of the reasons I wanted to discuss overhead and profit today, guys, is to be honest with you, it didn't come from experience of fighting for overhead and profit. It came from painful conversations with the contractors and the failure rate in the roofing industry, 90% failure rate. I want you to think about it. 90% of roofing contractors do fail within first literally couple years of business. And I believe one of the main reasons why is because we're not getting paid enough, because you have IRS, you have work comp audits. I mean, it's a dangerous trade. There is a lot of factors outside of business that literally will put you out of business. And one of the main one is cash flow. Contractors are constantly struggling with the cash flow, not bidding on the jobs properly, and not charging overhead and profit. And I firmly believe if we fix the problem of overhead and profit and charging properly for, and getting paid properly for what we're supposed to get paid, contractors will be in business a little bit longer and more people will go into trades. Because right now we have a big labor problem. Nobody wants to join. Nobody sees the future. Nobody goes to school and okay, I want to be a roofer or I want to have a roofing company. And one of the reasons is because it's hard work. And when you remove overhead and profit, when you remove profitability or make evil out of it, say you're greedy, you're bad. We should be in business to make money. And
there was a time when overhead and profit was paid on just 3 trades. Okay. Anytime you had 3 trades in an estimate, they added overhead and profit to the total amount of your claims, which is 10% for overhead and 10% for profit. Now the insurance companies have changed it to it's based on the complexity of the job. Exactware has some papers that they've done on this called their white pages, and it says profit is due on every trade. Every business is due profit. How do you grow your business without having profit to reinvest? Overhead, it says that overhead is due to every business that has overhead expenses. If you have office staff, that's an overhead expense. If you have an office, that's an overhead expense. If you have
a truck,
if you have any type of payroll.
Absolutely.
Paper for your printer, all that costs money, and all that is not calculated into the line items. So it's due, in my opinion, on one trade. If you have one trade, that roofer needs to make
absolutely
profit, and he also has overhead expenses, so that O&P should be covered on everything.
And there's a lot of companies out there, like our company. I mean, my overhead is $100,000 a month. It doesn't matter if I do 10 3-trade jobs or if I do 50 1-trade jobs. I mean, my $100,000 overhead with the payroll, office staff, everything in it, it's gonna go. So how do you cover it? How do you argue with the insurance company that they owe for one trade versus 3 trades? Like, what's the argument and how to win it?
So this is kind of something that I'm dealing with one of my clients on a historic project right now. The roofing material is a historic tile. They're agreeing that, yes, there should be a full replacement. And we're very close in the dollar figure on what those materials and the various trades in that project should be, excluding overhead and profit. They say, hey, this does not require overhead and profit. Now, anybody who's ever done or aware of the issues surrounding a historic tile project knows that it is extremely complex. Would you agree?
I would, yeah.
And because of that, I mean, there is a lot of scheduling, multi-day issues surrounding that. Not only that, but on this particular structure, the back of the house is basically drops off kind of onto a mountain. So there's issues that arise there, and they're basically saying this isn't complex enough. The question is what do they find as complexity? Everybody tries to play the 3 trade rule. I got a call the other day, I've got 5 trades on this, they're denying overhead and profit. The thing is like we have to realize that when we deal with the carriers, that the name of the game is proper documentation. Okay, so if they're wanting complexity, that you have to answer what and why is this particular job complex. Now, in your eyes, I understand that every single job you get is probably complex. However, you have to play their game, and that's what, on that particular job we're having to do is explain every minute reason, because you have to realize the person on the other end of that phone, that adjuster, that's a human too. And they've got something to report to, or somebody to report to. Sure. And they have inter-office memos on how they handle particular types of roofing materials, projects, and construction projects. And the thing is like if you can learn to document properly and play their game, you can win.
So what kind of documentation you provide? So let's say I have one trade, we did one roofing. What do you provide to document that job is complex enough to get overhead and profit?
So we provide them with a letter that basically explains the entire process. We explain the contractor's overhead situation, and we explain in great detail why the contractors do the profit on that job. So we've covered the overhead, we've documented it, we've covered the overhead, and we've explained why they need their profit. These letters are sometimes 2 and 3 pages long, because a simple roof is not always just a simple roof. A lot of times we find that there are missed items that can also increase the complexity of the job. I would say to the contractors, make sure you're finding all the damage associated with the claim. Don't just go out there and just look for that roof. Yes, we know you want to do the roof, but check all the windows, check all the siding, check the full interior of the property. Make sure you're not missing anything, because that's going to help with your complexity.
Is there a dent in the mailbox?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that you get a mailbox dent, there you go, right?
Well,
don't miss any damage is a key thing.
Very good point. You know how State Farm has a first page pretty much explaining overhead and profit?
Yeah.
To the homeowners. We show it to the homeowners all the time. And yet, even State Farm still denies it down the line. And we have on one trades all the time. So
it used to be so easy to get. I mean, it was.
When did it change, and why do you think it changed?
Well, it changed because of money, and it changed. I would say it started changing about 3 years ago, is when we started seeing a decline in, a contractor's success rate, and it's just progressively gotten worse and worse and worse.
But I think, talking to your first point, I think this is an overarching issue. And you're talking about cash flow, and I think it all stems back to this. So if you hold the purse strings, and that's what they do, they can dictate. Here's a question. Would you rather have $10,000 now or $12,000 in 6 months? I'm going to give you an option. I'm going to pay you $10,000, just boom, right now. You can have 10. Or in 6 months, you can have 12.
If you have financial stability, of course you're going to take 12. but a lot of contractors don't.
So now let's say you're starting a company or you just incurred some expenses. Everybody knows that you have to grow and you have scalability issues. Maybe your front desk girl leaves. Maybe you have some incurred expenses on that. And so what starts to happen is you start accepting these 10s and 10s and 10s and 10s, right? And not going for the 12s. You know you should, but man, you got to feed your kids. You got to make sure everything's taken care of. And so when we start making these exceptions for not taking what we should, and it happens person after person after person, guess what? People start seeing a trend. And I'll tell you this, if I had the option of every single month saving millions of dollars, why would I not do it? And so if you look from their perspective, are they wrong? The answer is yes, but if nobody's going to hold them to that and sit there and make them pay it, why not? Because you can always find someone that's going to do it cheaper.
Absolutely, and that's pretty big statement, but it's also very correct. There's always somebody who is willing to do it for less, and insurance companies is playing it against us, because when contractors goes in and say, I can't take the job without overhead and profit, and insurance, I heard it many times, well, if you can't do it, we have 5 contractors who can. Well, that's sad. It's very sad. We shouldn't be playing that game. You go to the doctor, and you pick a doctor to work on your body. You trust him, whether it's delivering your baby or replacing something in your body. Like working on your heart. Like, this is the doctor I want. Think about it. If your insurance say, well, he doesn't want to do it at our price, find another doctor. Now, how would you feel to go to a cheaper doctor to work on your heart? It's your heart.
The insured has the right to pick their contractor.
They do.
The insurance company can't force a contractor on them. There are a few situations where there's some wording in policies that gives the insurance company a right to have some say-so in who the contractor is, but that's very rare. Since the insured can choose their contractor, the contractor needs to be able to, set a fair price for his work, and the insurance company shouldn't be able to, regulate what his price should be. You're able to choose your price for what you charge for what you do, as are we, and any business in America is that way. You set your price, so the insurance company needs to see that all contractors have to be profitable, and the majority of them have overhead expenses, and it's an expense that needs to be paid on every claim.
I don't know how you run a business without overhead expenses.
And I don't know why you would run a business to not make a profit.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, back to overhead and profit. I remember my question. I remember a lot of discussions a couple of years ago. Nobody talks about it anymore, but there's been a lot of talks about having roofing in the name versus like contracting. And a lot of people were saying that I can't get overhead and profit because insurance company look at me as a roofing company versus general contractor. Right. Is it still the case? Is it still insurance making that statement?
So at times it is the case. I managed a roofing company in Georgia, but we also did general contracting, and we had roofing in the name. So what we ran into a lot of times is they would want to pay overhead and profit on every part of the claim except for the roof. And they would say, well, you don't need overhead and profit because you're a roofing company. They would pay the overhead and profit on the windows, on the interior work, on the siding, but they would deduct it on the roof. We were a general contracting company that we also did roofing. We would sub everything else out, but we would actually do the roof in-house. We had an immense amount of overhead in the neighborhood of $150,000 a month. And we were in business to make a profit.
Yeah.
We should have been paid the overhead and profit on every.
And they wouldn't pay
job.
just because you have a name.
We would eventually get it. We would have to kick our claims to a PA to get it a lot of times. There are a lot of claims that come to Premier just for overhead and profit.
Yeah.
The scope is agreed on, but they can't get the insurance company to cover the O&P, so they kick the claims to us so that we can negotiate the overhead and profit.
And honestly, it's difficult on our end to justify accepting a $30,000 claim that just lacks maybe overhead and profit or a slight pricing issue. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be there for someone's large claims, why are you not going to be there to let's fight the fight together, right? Sure. I'm here for your good ones, I'm here for your bad ones. You got to make this $7,000,
Absolutely.
And that's kind of, with those, kind of something that our company's definitely looked at accepting, and we have to staff the individuals necessary to do that, which, talking about overhead, I mean, that's obscenely costly when we just could take large jobs. But at the same point in time, I mean,
You
we're
build
in this,
relationships.
yeah, we're in this fight together, and you know, that's kind of why we do that, is because it should
Is it
be
a big
paid.
fight? Let's say if I have right now 10 jobs that just like overhead and profit, and that's what a lot of contractors don't understand, that numbers don't lie. If you look at the numbers, just like with in case with deductibles, contractors who give away deductibles, I don't think they do math. I mean, you do 100 jobs waiving deductible, it's $100,000 that can be in your pocket. The same goes with deductibles. A lot of with the overhead and profit, a lot of guys, what I hear a lot of, oh, it's not worth the time. Well, it's not worth the time maybe on that one job, that 10 and 12,000, but when you have 50 of them, that's another 100K. So, and it's literally 1 month of your overhead. You run your company for free for a month.
Yeah.
So, is it worth the fight?
It is. It's. I mean, let's just call it 20% across the board. If you've got 10 jobs that are worth, $20,000 each, and without overhead and profit, with overhead and profit, they're worth, $24,000.
That being said, like, let's just be honest, every single one of these overhead and profit only claims that we get are never just that.
Yeah.
If we get them, so they'll be like, there's 20% left, it's just O&P. When we get that, it's pretty much 40, almost. I mean, we can look at Salesforce right now, but I mean, that's the percentage it's going to run. And that's because if they're underpaying one thing, they're likely they're always, are we like 97% of the time or something like that? It's
There's
underpaid.
misline items, there's no O&P. A lot of times we find that there's missed damage. Most contractors are after the roof, and they have tunnel vision, so they're focused in on that roof, and they miss a lot of other damage. So when we take a claim on, we find that there's a large amount of missed line items and overhead.
That
profit.
Jacksonville mansion on the water is a great example.
It is.
So John and I were in Jacksonville for another client, and I had one of my clients call me and say, hey, they've only paying for a repair on this roof. This was the biggest mistake this insurance carrier ever made, was not paying for this roof, because when we get there, we're like, oh my gosh, this is a massive issue. I mean, there's ceiling out on this thing. There's this massive piece of art that is on the back of the house that goes out, that looks over the water, that nobody addressed. I mean, that thing alone's got to be 6 figures. I mean, anything you could imagine, like pool heater messed up, foundation of the pool messed up. What else is on that? I mean, it's
tons of interior. Every room in the house had damage. That the insurance company had missed, and the contractor had missed as well. He wanted the roof, and he brought us in because they denied the roof. And then when we got there, the insurance company had paid out $21,000 for some repairs to the roof. And what we determined was it needed a full roof replacement with an additional $600,000 worth of damage that we found, and then overhead and profit
pretty much
on
selling
top
for the
of all
contractor.
that.
what's that?
You sell them for the contract.
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, that's the name of the game. Is our contract is for the policyholder, right? Like, how does we make the policyholder justly restored? And on that Hurricane Irma claim, a roof would not simply get it. I mean, this thing all the way to the basement had issues, and this is very common that we get a claim and they're like, hey, there's overhead and profit, or if you can just get the roof, we're good. And we look at it, and I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of issues.
It's keep amazing me how many competitors you guys already have with the PremierClaims. It's more and more companies coming to the market, and to be honest with you, all of you should not even be in business if insurance company were doing what they're supposed to do. Like, all your business model pretty much on built on integrity or lack of integrity of insurance companies.
We put in a couple different models for our clients. One of ours is like an efficiency model where it allows their salespeople to just go out and sell. That, again, was something we came up with probably about 18 months ago. And we have a lot of clients that use it to where we're doing even their lower end adjuster meetings, we're pulling information directly from their CRMs. We're filing these claims for them. And what it ends up doing is we figure out equaling about 10 to 30 hours a week of saved time, depending on the contractor's load. What that allows is for them to run and sell. The reason that's beneficial is, you guys know, in a post-storm environment, time is money.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so we have some different models, but I completely agree with you, because at the end of the day, we want to, if the insurance company just one day said, we're going to pay everything out so it's suitable, we still want to survive as a company too, right?
Exactly. Well, the thing is, across the board right now, it's like 30-40% underpaid. That's what you don't see at any insurance commercial. You know, you're in good hands and all of it. Like, that's what public thinks. You know, I got insurance, I'm covered. But then, you know, you covered 60%, and companies like PremierClaims get it to 100%, you know, because when 30-40% is missing every single time, I mean, somebody have to get it. Contractors don't know how to. I mean, we don't have resources. We don't have lawyers and speed dials.
You don't have time.
You don't have time. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I remember a couple of years ago when I was getting an insurance game, because we were a retail company, and we were getting it. I would get like $18,000-$19,000 job, and the same thing. Like, overhead and profit is not there. This is not there. So I see $5,000-$6,000 missing. But what's my option? Like, what's contractor's option without public adjuster? I mean, can I call my lawyer? Can I go against $1 billion company?
You
Good
can.
luck.
The problem is, a lot of attorneys outside a handful of states don't want to take smaller jobs. The other issue is, a lot of contractors don't, and I had this conversation last Thursday night with debatably the roofer that sold the most in the U.S. or whatever, and he was like, I hate kicking it to attorneys outside of these states, because there goes all your money. And I was like, interesting. So at the end of the day, a lot of times I feel that you guys are definitely kind of constrained on your options. We hope to alleviate that, and people don't understand, because we constantly staff. It's to the point now where we basically try to hire a new desk adjuster or a new attorney every other week. And then, so that way, if, you know, somebody on our team gets pregnant or has to take a sabbatical or whatever, we always have people lined up in the queue. But frankly, you know, underpaid claims come in as quick as we can possibly, like, get them filed.
What's the time now? Like, what's the turn time
on claims?
Yeah.
I mean, that fluctuates. So if you have,
do you have like average? So if I give you a claim today, that's let's say we already signed everything.
So a residential claim averages between 30 and 60 days.
State dependent.
Yep, state
Florida,
dependent.
Hurricane Irma is going to have like a plus 25-day lag time.
A commercial claim, we like to say it's 90 days to 6 months, because a large part of our commercial claims we take at a denial. It's been denied. Anytime a claim's been denied, you can go ahead and tack some more time onto it, because we have to. It's almost like starting from scratch, but we're already up against a wall from the very beginning. So it's a large fight. Give you some crazy numbers. We were talking with a client yesterday that was kind of wanting to know timelines and percentages, and you and Pate were talking about how much do we, you know, increase the claims. Our company average right this minute is 262%. So you got to realize we're getting a lot of claims that have paid out $1,000, and we take them to $2 million. So I would say those numbers are skewed a little bit, but there's so much money that is left out there that people don't realize, and that was based off of a 600 claim stack that our dashboard was reading.
So we took 600 claims, and we had our developer just run all these different statistics on those 600. And we didn't like pick 600. We were just like numbered this one to this one, and that's like what it spat out. And then our average increase was like 30-something thousand bucks, like, you know. And it's weird, because it's like when you have a range like that, I'd love to go claim by claim and see like, well, this was a 30,000 and this was a 2 million, and just see what it did, just to see the skew.
Well, but you have to know your average ticket and your like average job. Yeah, I see it. Well, very, very interesting. I mean, this topic is so beaten right now. Would you, like, overhead and profit is mine's blowing because it's black and white, but everybody is in the gray.
So you have to realize, and I said this with a client yesterday, there is no black and white with, so like you want it to be. Like I would love to say, because of X plus Y, Z happens. But unfortunately, that doesn't benefit the individual that writes the contract if that individual has enough money to play the game and they have enough money to play the game. They can 90% of the time out-lawyer you or out-circle talk you, if we want to call that. And the thing is like that illusory language helps them. We have a particular situation that we're working on in Florida where a carrier says, no, you have to get your contracts to us this way. So on the next 3 claims, that's how we do it. And then they say, no, you have to do it this way. No, you have to do it this way, until you have like a 30 claim stack where you're having to run up to management for them to even accept the claim. And I mean, we have documentation where they do that. Well, what are we going to do? Are we going to sue them? Why? What's that going to do? Is that, okay, let's push it 2.5 years out to get any resolution on these 30, while then we have more and more and more stack, right? And so that's the issue with what you're talking about. You're like, it should be black and white, but it never will be, because gray saves money.
Gray saves money.
Gray saves money.
I have to remember that. Do you talk more on a regular basis to desk adjusters, or how often do you talk to legal? How often do you talk to attorneys? And
so probably less than 1% of our claims ever, get to a suit situation.
So
litigation.
Actually on a daily basis you talk.
Yeah, we touch every claim at a minimum of every other day. We have desk adjusters. Our company's set up just like the insurance company. We have our salesmen, we have our admins, we have our own desk adjusters. All of our desk adjusters are either barred attorneys or have a law degree. So they're great at negotiating claim settlements. We have our own field team that goes out and does the inspections. So we are set up no different than the insurance company. We found that makes our claims flow a lot smoother because we operate the same way that they do, just on the other side of the fence.
Well, I'm sitting here, I got a little team back home, and they're clicking away and calling, and that's what I like is everybody in our job is, it's just like assembly line of claims. I go out, I have my team, we meet people, right? We connect with them, we determine their issues, we come up with the models that best help those individuals, not on just one claim, but their overarching issues inside the business, like how can we help? Then, we have our account managers, and they deal with them on a day-to-day. I deal with them on a day-to-day, John deals with them, but those people are the ones that are pulling the info out of their CRMs. Then it's kicked to our filing team, what needs to happen here. And the thing is like if you're built out correctly, it allows for max speed. If somebody takes a vacation, your claims are still getting worked.
So it's all in the process.
Yeah, exactly. Trust the process.
Well, Pate and John came in actually to support us with Fittest Roofer event yesterday. Did you like the results? Did you like the event?
I was upset the guy from Nebraska didn't win.
Third.
Listen, man, first or nothing, right? First or nothing.
He was using his head, and he literally was bleeding on top of his head. And then, he was showing me his napkin he was trying to clean because he was bumping up from his head, and I guess granules eventually. It would be really bad for you.
Yeah, we couldn't do it. We couldn't use his system.
So tell me how you guys met. What's your story?
It's a good, John, I'm going to let you handle this one.
So I was living in Georgia, and Pate was in Nebraska, and they had some straight line winds come through, and he was new to the company. And to be honest with you, he knew nothing about damage.
What company?
Premier.
Okay.
No clue what damage looked like, but he was out signing up claims. And so Kyle called me one night, I think it was a Sunday night, and he's like, I got this guy in Nebraska, and he has got no clue what he's doing, but he's signing a bunch of claims. And I said, well, I guess one of us needs to take a trip to Nebraska. And he said, I can't go. I said, okay, I'll go. So I called Pate. First time I ever talked to him. Said, hey, I'm on the way to Nebraska tomorrow. I need you to pick me up at the airport. I'm going to go look at all your claims with you. So got to the airport the next day, about 10 o'clock in the morning, got in the car with Pate, by 6 o'clock that afternoon, I got back out of the car at the airport, and I called my wife, and I was supposed to be there for a week. I called her and I said, no way I'm riding around with this guy for the rest of the week. I hate this guy. It's almost like he's on acid. He's just constantly.
I run at a fast pace.
He runs at a fast pace. It's super stressful. She said, no, just stay and just see how it goes. So I rented a car the next day. I couldn't ride with him again. So for the rest of the week, I followed him around to all of his claims in my own rental car just because I couldn't ride with him. Make a long story short, that I came home on Friday, and then it hailed. The June 29th storm was that Friday night, and I went back on Saturday and ended up basically living with him and his family for about off and on for like 3 months until me and my family moved to Nebraska. So
that being
became great friends, and my wife and his
and drove yesterday for 5 hours for our event together in one car, right?
Yeah.
No more rentals.
No more rentals.
That being said, I just want to say that it wasn't that I didn't know damage. It was like, I mean, how
Damage control.
He didn't
Yeah.
know what hail
Damage
looked
control.
like.
well, there wasn't a whole. It was mostly straight line winds. You know, at that point in time, I was just worried about like business to connections. You know, and I owned a company at the time and was pretty deep in that. And I just did like liaison work for them in Nebraska. So, you know, Kyle called and was, you know, I'd been kicking that around of me kind of coming on with them for a while, and yeah, now we all live like within 3 miles of each other. Flew everybody in from almost the whole country, and now Omaha's our home base.
You're in all the states, correct?
44, 40.
We don't do much in California. I don't
We're
think we work
licensed there,
Washington State, but Alabama and Arkansas are the two main ones we try to stay.
Got to stay out of Alabama and Arkansas, which hurts being from Alabama. I mean, I could just, it would be stupid what I could do there, but, you know, such is life.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming. If you're the contractor and you are fighting overhead and profit, cannot get it, I know you've read, you've heard about it. Give those guys a call, Pate or John from PremierClaims. I highly recommend their services. It's not an endorsement per se. I just want to tell the story. I want to start the conversation because something has to be done in the industry to make contractors' lives easier, to help with that failure rate. My heart goes to all hardworking contractors, and money do save a lot of headaches, a lot of problems that we face in our business every day. It doesn't have to be stressful, because financial stress is the biggest stress you can get as a business owner. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Roofing Rundown. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.